where growth is intentional and impact is inevitable. So we ask that you don't just watch, engage with us. Don't just listen, but learn with us. And don't just sit back. Come take a seat at the table. We are just getting started. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Broadcasting Result with Rouse. I'm your host, Turquoise Rouse, and tonight we invite you to take a seat at the table. That's right, a seat at the table. We have some very special statewide candidates here in South Carolina ready to take in on the roundtable discussion. As we know, as we continue to lead into election day, that is, our goal is solely to provide you, the voters, the viewers, an opportunity to hear directly from these candidates, the ones that are seeking your vote on June 9th. This platform itself, we continue to provide an opportunity where you can stay engaged, get educated, and stay empowered, but yet empower your neighbor, your family, and friends. And so we want you to, in the comments area, drop your questions if you should have any. And just thank you for tuning in. So if you're just coming in, we ask that you share this platform tonight. Share with your family, your friends, your neighbors, and even those that are still undecided on who they should vote for. The statewide candidates, most of them are here tonight. And so we want to first tell each of them, thank you for joining the platform tonight. Thank you all for just tuning in and having just a few minutes so that the viewers can hear from you. So we're going to get started. We do have one candidate that was on the broadcast back in April 30th, that is, and that's Dr. Jermaine Johnson. And you all are welcome to go back and rewatch that particular episode. However, he was not able to join us here tonight again, but his team did submit a video and asked if we would please take a time to show it. And we want to take just a few minutes to show that video.
I want to tell you all about this bag here. I lived out of this duffel bag for 10 years, starting when I was just 16 years old. In that time, I went to 7 different high schools. I slept in motels, on couches, even in the locker room at the College of Charleston. Clothes, shoes, photos. Imagine having to decide which pieces of your life will fit in a duffel bag. I want you to hear this. Millions of Americans and thousands of South Carolinians have a bag just like this. Some of them live out of the bag. Some of them keep it packed under the bed, ready to go. Some people throw out their bag as soon as they get a house, but I decided to keep mine. I keep it as a reminder of where I came from, of the kind of people I serve. My name is Jermaine Johnson, and I'm running for governor of South Carolina to make sure that no one has to grow up living out of a duffel bag.
Thank you, Team Johnson, for providing that video for the viewers to continue to learn more about you. You all are welcome to visit his website and all of his other social media platforms to continue to be educated and informed for those that have not yet voted. So we're going to move into something that is considered to be called the Secretary of State. And most people will ask, what is that? What is the Secretary of State? And as we know it, Secretary of State serves as the state chief filing officer. But I don't want to get too much into that role itself because I want the candidate themselves to tell you a little bit about themselves, the role, and why you should click their name at the ballot box. Tonight, you all, we have Mr. Jason Belton here tonight joining us to talk a little bit more about his role. How are you, sir?
Hello. Thank you for inviting me, Ms. Rouse.
Thank you for joining. For the viewers that may not know or just heard your name for the first time, can you tell us who you are, what inspired you to run for this role, and why South Carolina residents should trust you with this office?
Awesome. And please excuse me, I'm in the car, but I did not want to miss this magnificent show with Ms. Rouse, so I'm on my cell phone if I look a little crazy. But I'm Jason Belton. I'm a husband. I'm also a father of 6. I work for an advocate for the marginalized and disenfranchised communities for about 18 years now. I love all of our communities, particularly I just love when I'm in these communities have been marginalized because there's so many skill sets that are so transferable to this political apparatus. Has just excited me, as I had some humble beginnings as well. And I want to show them you can become beyond where you were raised. You can become beyond of what your beginnings are. And that's what brought me into, I guess, what's considered politics, because I was told if you don't do politics, politics will do you. All right. So I started organizing in these communities. And of course, when you're organizing and you start to gain influence, you start to raise numbers in these communities. These legislators and candidates, they want to say, hey, I want you to put that behind my campaign. So that pushed me to start running a lot of campaigns as a consultant. Also was the executive director for the Legislative Progressive Caucus in the Statehouse, which is pretty much advising and working for most of our progressive legislators, both in the Senate and in the House. I have a heart for labor. I was the operational director for the American Federation of Labor, which is affectionately known as the AFL-CIO, and I have become the ethics chair, which makes me very qualified as it comes to the Secretary of State office, as it comes to compliance, watching oversight, and just being that executive there. Yes, ma'am, Ms. Rouse.
Thank you.
Thank you
That's
for
a
the
lot.
opportunity.
Thank you. That was definitely a lot. Can you tell us, the viewers, that is, what unique experiences or perspectives do you
Right.
bring that distinguish you from your opponent?
Right. Well, number one, and I try not to go too far into as it comes to my opponent, but for me, I've ran 3 businesses that I still run and have been running for 15 years in this state. Also launched a business called C&J Consulting, where I consulted businesses and nonprofits to make them thrive, help them get the proper funding. That has been my livelihood. So everything that I mentioned, that's part of my pedigree, I still do it to this day. There's not one nonprofit board that I speak that I've been on that I'm not currently on. All of my businesses are successful, and I still run them now. So that's
Thank you.
yes,
So, with
ma'am.
these businesses that you're currently running,
Right,
and just dealing with the Secretary of State, when we talk about small businesses and nonprofits, how would you
right.
continue to balance those and work with other communities as well?
Well, that's what I love about the position of Secretary of State. We're talking about empowering the LLCs and the nonprofits of our state. This is something I already do, not only as a business, but even as nonprofit works. I love to see our communities thrive, and charities and businesses, local businesses, have been the backbone of the state for years. So it's something that's dear to me. It's something that I do every day. So I don't even consider it work. So when I seen this opportunity to run for Secretary of State, where that job is to deal with who's who in business and who's who in nonprofit, I knew that had to be me. But let me also say this, Ms. Rouse. One thing about the Secretary of State is seen as this boring job. But I understand the bureaucracy of the Secretary of State, working in the State House as executive director. And one thing about that is you have to have the relationships to actually work with these legislators to make sure that it's proper statutory responsibility as it comes to these constitutional officers. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Uh, so you mentioned about having 6 kids yourself. And so when
Yes.
I'm sitting here thinking about young people that want to start businesses, but
Right.
kind of unsure like where to start, how
Right.
can the Secretary of State office become more accessible for first-time entrepreneurs?
I'm glad that you asked that question. Number one, if anybody has to do any dealings with the Secretary of State, they have to come to Columbia. We're talking about workers who are working every day 8 to 5 and barely can find time to take off to even deal with their children, to even talk about coming to Columbia. So what I've came up with is to advocate, once I'm Secretary of State, is to work with other state agencies in all of these counties to build satellite offices right in your county. And check this out. We can do this without even allocating a new budget. We're talking about like the DMVs, who's already have a proper budget and have a venue already in your county. Just slide over, let us use some of those vacant offices so that we can make sure our businesses and nonprofits who have been the heart of our communities continue to thrive.
Thank you, and thank you for just
Yes, ma'am.
taking that extra initiative to kind of want to see pretty much every county served, that they don't necessarily have to drive to
Right.
Columbia if they don't have to. And again, we know that that would take time for you to definitely put those things in place, but it's the fact that you are thinking ahead of it. And so that
Right.
leads me to my next question is, if elected, what will be
Right.
one measurable accomplishment you hope to achieve within your first 2 years?
Love it. And let me also say, I'm not even waiting until I get into the Secretary of State office. To date, I've already sat down with 11 DMV directors, and they're very intrigued about the idea I have with the satellite offices and are very open to this. So one thing I'm going to do, I'm already starting this work. So, but one of the first things to do when I am elected, I will build task force built of these communities of business owners and both our nonprofit and charities directors, so that we can get a perspective from those who had to deal with the red tape, so that we know what red tape we need to cut. We know what do they need to survive and thrive. So I will build, again, these task force that are directly out of these communities. Another thing I would like to do is build relationships with the Federal Trade Commission. Right now, our state have definitely become victims of deceptive fundraising that comes from these charities from a corporate level. They have come into our state. They say they're raising money, and they raise millions of dollars and only spend under 1% actually on the operations. So there has to be a relationship between the Secretary of State's office and the Federal Trade Commission, so that we put a stop to this corporate greed and this corporate deceptiveness. That is something dear to me, because they've been taking advantage of our most vulnerable, not only organizations, but our people, our elders. Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry. I got a little passionate there.
And we
I hate
appreciate it.
deceptiveness. I hate
Appreciate
thieves.
it. Thank you for that. Thank you. Thank you. So, graduation has occurred across South Carolina itself, particularly where we are. And there's
Hmm.
a lot of seniors who, if they're already 18,
Right.
may still be hesitant about going to the polls and what that looks like when it comes to voting.
Right.
And so, if a high school senior in South Carolina right now would ask you, why do civic leadership matters? What would you tell them?
Well, number one, I like the fact that you brought up voting. So I'm going to mix these two together,
Sure.
because I know we're going in for time. Most of our neighboring states, the Secretary of State deals directly as it comes to the voting apparatus, the voting rolls. Here, our election commission handles that. But our Secretary of State, who's been a ghost to this state so far as visibility, works behind the scene and heavily and significantly influences the election commission. Now,
Mm,
I say this as I go around, but you may not know and the people may not know. Our Secretary of State sits on a quasi committee with the judiciary chairs, which we know redistricting was weaponized out of that committee, as well as the president of the Senate and also the Speaker of the House. Now, that type of political influence should have statutory responsibility if behind the scene you're going to be opening up these side doors, controlling how these commissions work. So I need these 18-year-olds to understand that your vote, your vote is your voice.
mhm.
And the fact that we just got the records back, it's been under 5,000 of our 18-year-olds to 25 that have voted in this very, very significant election with
Mm,
all these numbers that just voted. But I'm pushing for a statutory responsibility that we put a constitutional officer that directly chairs the election commission. And that officer I would like to be the Secretary of State. And we're going to need every vote and every voice that's out there, because that determines who has a supermajority as it comes in this state.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for
Yes,
that.
ma'am.
If you all have any questions for him, please drop them in the comments area. As each candidate comes on screen, some of them will be in the background, and so they will still have a chance to engage with you. Mr. Beltram,
Yes,
as
ma'am.
we finish up with you here, can you close out telling the viewers, the voters of South Carolina, your
Yes.
closing message and why some of them are still undecided why they should go and cast your name at the ballot box?
Yes, ma'am. Well, I also want to let these folks know, and thank you, Ms. Rouse, for giving this opportunity. I wasn't going to miss this from the world. That's why I'm in this car. So you please
Thank
excuse me.
you.
But it's been organizations like yours that I've been working with over the years that are in the heart of these communities, just like you. And I've seen them go through so much red tape that just bogged them down so much that they became discouraged. That's why I built a business around consulting businesses and nonprofits to thrive, because these corporate nonprofits, these big businesses have drained literally the majority of the resources out of this state. And I refuse to keep letting that happen. When it comes to mental health, when it comes to the crime rate going up, it's these nonprofits and charities that have been fighting in our communities to stop this, that have been stopping recidivism and all the different plagues that have been in our community. So it's up to us to empower these nonprofits, these businesses that have been the backbone in the state, and take that freaking corporate stronghold off of this state. And that's why I want to get in the Secretary of State office. And I'm going to leave you with this. I applaud all of our candidates across this state. But one thing I want all the voters to focus on: we have to pick the candidates that can bring new voters and the missing voters to this election in November. I don't care how many doctorates you have. I don't care how intelligent you think you are. If you cannot bring out the missing voters, that takes up the deficit that we've been losing as a Democratic Party over these years, we ain't gonna have nothing but smart losers. So all I'm saying is, pick me, choose me. I will fight. I will go in these communities and make sure those that have been missing from this political process come back so we can beat them in November. Because I'm telling you, Ms. Rouse, we can win this as a Democratic Party. And my campaign will make sure of that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Beltram. I know you have to leave. I
Yes,
appreciate
ma'am.
you just being willing to carve out some time. I wish you well as we continue this week of early voting. But you all on June 9th, where some of you will still wait to cast your vote. If you're undecided, you were able to hear from him tonight. And if he is your particular candidate that you will be voting for the Secretary of State, I ask that you continue to follow his platforms. And here again tonight, you were able to hear from him to choose wisely, continue to stay educated, and continue to be informed. Thank you and bless
Thank
you
you.
with your continued journey.
God.
You all, while we have had some technical difficulties, I would say that we did have Ms. Winters on. She may come back and join us, but we do want to just thank her as well for joining, because she was on at one point, and I don't know if just her service might have went out. But thank you to Ms. Winters. If you come back on, you will still have an opportunity for the viewers to hear from you as well. We also have up next a U.S. Senate seat. We had Mr. Freeman on, and I think he was experiencing some technical difficulties as well. But while Dr. Annie Andrews was not able to join us, her team did submit a video that we would like to play.
My name is Dr. Annie Andrews, and for almost 2 decades, I've been a pediatrician in South Carolina. Parents trust me to treat their kids for just about everything you can imagine. This is an x-ray of a kid with measles pneumonia, a condition easily prevented by vaccines. This is a kid with cancer, one of the diseases the NIH doesn't have the funding to study anymore. And this is a kid who's been shot, which, despite being the #1 cause of death for children in America, is no longer classified as a public health crisis. And this kid, and there's really no other way to say this, is quite literally full of shit. And this is an adult who is also completely and unequivocally full of. Roll the tape.
You know how you make America great again? Tell Donald Trump to go to hell. I like the president. I want to help him. I hope he's successful. You know what concerns me about the American press is this endless attempt to label the guy as some kind of kook. I think he's a kook. He's not fit to be president.
It's embarrassing, and South Carolina deserves better. So today, I'm announcing that I'm running for the United States Senate to replace Lindsey Graham. But this isn't just about Lindsey or even Donald Trump. Take a look around. An unelected billionaire is taking a chainsaw to Social Security, Medicare, and veterans' health care. The vaccine-denying brainworm guy is gutting our nation's healthcare system. The wrestling lady is elbow-dropping the Department of Education. And a guy who can't even organize a text thread is running the Department of Defense. And Lindsey Graham voted to confirm every single one of these people. It's a lot. All while backing Trump's plan to cut taxes for millionaires and billionaires while raising yours. No wonder he won't show his face here in South Carolina.
I don't need a town hall to know what to do.
Lindsey Graham has been a senator for half my lifetime. And as it turns out, most senators don't get better with age.
They hate my guts.
Will winning this race be easy? No. But you can't win if you don't run. And the one thing we can all agree on is Lindsey Graham doesn't deserve a free pass back to D.C. Now, Lindsey is going to tell you I'm radical, that I'm crazy, because that's what weak men do when they feel threatened by strong women. But here's the thing. I'm literally a busy mom and a pediatrician who plays peekaboo with my patients, watches Bluey with my kids. I love Bluey. And spends most of my free time shuttling them to dance, taekwondo, and football. Say hi, kids.
Hi, kids.
So radical. I also just happen to be someone who isn't afraid of a fight. And like so many of you, I am worried about what the future holds for our kids and our state. Everything from failing schools to closing hospitals, the climate crisis and rising prices, to tariffs hurting our ports and auto industry. Worrying won't do anything, but stepping up to join me in this fight just might. A fight where we put common sense over culture wars and hope over hate. Right now, Lindsey Graham is counting on all of us to stay quiet. And that means one thing. It's time to get loud. I'm Dr. Annie Andrews, and I hope you'll join me.
There you all have heard it from Dr. Annie Andrews, and I ask that you all continue to follow her platforms and continue to engage with the process. I do want to say again that Ms. Winters and Mr. Freeman was on. Ms. Winters is also running for Secretary of State, and Mr. Freeman is running for U.S. Senate seat. They were on, so I do want to give them credit for being a part of the platform tonight. However, I know they were having some technical difficulties, and if they, by chance, before we end, join us, they will have an opportunity to speak as well. But you all, we want to move on to where the money resides, And we want to go to Mr. Vincent Coles. He is running for our state treasurer seat. In South Carolina, treasurer seat pretty much serve as the chief banker and the investment officer. And obviously he'll have a chance to go a little bit more into that as well. But we want to thank you, sir, for joining the platform.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me, Dr. Rouse. Great to be with you all.
Thank you. Thank you. For viewers that are probably just hearing from you for the first time, obviously, and just hearing the name, can you obviously just please tell us a little bit about yourself, what inspired you for this office, and why South Carolina residents should trust you with their tax dollars?
Okay. Great questions, and I'll do my best to answer all of them. So Vincent Coe, running for state treasurer of South Carolina. I am a South Carolina native, born and raised in Darlington, South Carolina. I'm a product of the Darlington County Public School System, graduated from Lamar High School, and was able to attend the University of South Carolina, where I earned my degree in finance, risk management, insurance. And so since that time, I started my career in public service. During college, I was an intern for the Lieutenant Governor of South Carolina at that time, and I served seniors and people with disabilities. So my first job out of college was at the Lieutenant Governor's Office on Aging, where I assisted seniors to link them with resources that were available for seniors that had mobility issues, and a lot of seniors who did not have the ability to find resources that they needed in the state of not having the mobility issues and access issues to public services. So that's how I started my career. Since then, I was fortunate enough to land a job as a bank examiner, where I started my career at the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. At that time, that was when the world had experienced the what we call the mortgage crisis, right? So lots of homes were in foreclosures. A lot of banks were closing. left, right, and center. And so my job at the FDIC was to ensure that all depositors who had money in financial institutions, that those deposits that they receive, obviously that they receive their funds, and basically to preserve confidence in the banking system. So that's kind of how I started out in banking. I was fortunate enough to get a law degree from Case Western Reserve in Cleveland, Ohio. And then I also went and worked for the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta for a couple of years as a fair and responsible bank examiner, so basically fair lending and CRA. I currently serve as the Vice President of Community Reinvestment and Fair Lending at a bank in Greenville, South Carolina. So I'm fortunate enough to be in my home office today here in Florence. So any day of the week, so basically Monday through Friday, I'm in Greenville, South Carolina. And on Saturday, Sunday, I get to stay in my house. So, so that's a little bit about my experience. But sort of I think the answer to the question that voters would want to know, so why me and why now? I just believe that now is the time that we need some accountability, transparency, integrity back into the state treasurer's office. And I know we have our candidates for Comptroller General on this evening, and I would love to, if elected, work in partnership with either of these fabulous candidates to preserve the integrity that this office holds. And so, what the basic fundamentals of the state treasurer's office, the treasurer in the short term is, in all intents and purposes, is the state's banker. He or she is responsible for ensuring that the taxpayer money is safe, that it is being spent responsibly, that our bills obviously are paid on time, and then also making sure that we have that level of accountability and we are able to preserve the integrity of the state, being able to borrow money as needed, and ensuring that that our credibility is such that it's not brought into question, that we don't have rates being raised and then it causes an increase in basically an increase in taxes. So hopefully that answers some of the questions. I think there may have been some others, but I'll be happy to answer anything else.
No, I think you pretty much capped it. And when I'm sitting here, I'm thinking, knowing that this office pretty much manage state funds, right?
Yes,
Investment, banking relationships. We need that.
that's right.
Those debt obligations. And like you say, being able to bring that trust back into this office. And also just programs that designed to protect and grow taxpayers' resources. Because
Yes,
taxpayers pretty much want to see that their dollars are being put not just to use, but good use. They
right.
can see the return on the investments. And so when I think of the treasurer's office, which manage billions of dollars,
That's right.
taxpayer dollars, that is,
Yes,
not Vincent's, not Turquoise,
that's right.
taxpayers' dollars, which
That's
I
right.
was included in it, but overall, these are the taxpayers.
Yeah.
What financial principles would you guide your decision making with this?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question. And as you said, the treasurer's office is responsible for over $70 billion in taxpayer money. And one thing I didn't mention, so there's also the state's retirement system, and then there's also unclaimed property. And what I bring to bear, having this responsibility, is again that of integrity, that of having an independent bodies, and also a staff of individuals that really provide me the checks and the balances that I would need to lead on day one. As your banker, the standard in anything dealing with money, again, is trust. It's bottom line. If you don't trust those who are stewarding your money, that's kind of there's not much, nowhere else much to go after that. So if I can just bring back that level of trust to this particular office, and again, working in partnership with the state Comptroller General's office and even the auditor's office, making sure that those checks and balances are working correctly, so that we don't have the mishap of like the $1.8 billion accounting error that has been publicized all in the news media. And I definitely encourage the viewers, not to take my word for it, because I always like to make sure that they are able to verify what I say. A lot of this information is out there and available online. And a credit to the Comptroller General's office is putting has put up a site for basically that really provides an extra layer of transparency. And so I just would love to model some of those same recommendations that had been made by those external auditor firms that came in, and have us, bring an internal auditor into the treasurer's office, or bring in, a person with a fresh perspective, and someone being able to not just take our word for it, but making sure that our work speaks for itself. And that's what I've been in compliance for a number of years, and I always tell my folks that I lead that the work has to speak for itself, and it has to be able to stand on its own. And so that's what I would bring to bear in making sure that we restore that credibility to the office.
Thank you. And I'm glad you mentioned the Comptroller office as well, and that building that relationship. And we're going to hear from them soon as well. But it's necessary. You all are in your respective roles, but it's good to see that you're willing to collaborate and work for the best interests of South Carolina residents. And so I appreciate you mentioning that. But how can South Carolina do a better job educating our citizens about finance or financial well-being and or wealth building?
Excellent question. And it's something that I'm really, really passionate about. As I mentioned, I'm the vice president of a bank in Greenville, South Carolina, where I manage the Community Reinvestment Act program and also their Fair Lending program. Part of community reinvestment, or a big part of it, is that of financial literacy. And what I would love to bring to the state of South Carolina, we already have in our secondary educational system, I believe there is the requirement to have some form of financial literacy in the classroom. What I would love to have to even broaden that, it would be great for the even high school graduates. When they leave high school, they can have a certificate in partnership with the treasurer's office that says that they have a certification and they know how to manage, basically a checkbook. They know how to, what are the good decisions that I can start making at an early age, and not using credit so frequently. But when you use credit, use it responsibly. And so I believe that there's great opportunity for us to enhance financial literacy across the state, and then also protecting those, I would like to say, vulnerable, like so our seniors and our even people with disabilities, making sure that they're not being taken for a ride. And I think candidate Belton mentioned that about our seniors in sort of the fraud and folks trying to trick them out of their money. That's we don't want to have that happen. And South Carolina has a large population of seniors. And so, in our state is continuing to grow exponentially. And we have about 5.5 million people, and it's going to continue to grow here in the next couple of years. And so the more we can do with, in partnership with our schools, colleges and universities, and again, providing that financial literacy to help bring that, awareness, how to start investing, how to start building. And most people don't know if they can work to start buying a home, that's your gateway into wealth, right? Your home, that's the starting point. So if I can help bring our younger generation into this conversation and really taking it to the next level.
Thank you for that. And one thing you did mention was like those high school seniors, right? And we do have a candidate on for the superintendent of education. But I just love kind of how you building your platform, or I should say your plan, to
Sure.
work with the comptroller and education system, because we both need both sides of that. So I
Absolutely.
appreciate you mentioning that. So I want you for a second to imagine that you are speaking to young families, because something you mentioned early on was kind of being wise. And we all know when we're much younger and we're out there kind of foolish when we
Yeah.
talk about managing funding and credit, and before you know it, credit is where it is, right?
Yeah.
But imagine that you're speaking with a young family who's pretty much struggling to make ends meet.
Yeah.
And so they want to hear from the state treasurer. What would you want them to know about your vision for South Carolina financial future?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. And I would say bottom line is I would give the same advice that I would want someone to have given me when I first started my career, is to don't give up. It may be hard, and I'm speaking from experience. I can just use myself as a year ago. A year ago, I was laid off and was without a job. And so when you have those experiences and you're trying to figure out, well, what do you do? And the hard thing to do is to continue to try to continue to keep trying, even though you can't see it. You just have to have that little, I call it faith. You have that little morsel of faith and say, hey, it's going to get better. And you may not always get it. You may not have the right answers. You may not, may not be all that you want. But if you just continue to work at it, things end up working out the way that they're supposed to. And those lessons that you learn along the way is what really helps you to pour back into your family, your children and your neighbors, and being able to, so then if they find themselves in a position like you were, you can relate and you can probably help them out because you can say, hey, I've been there and I know what it's going to take to get you to get to the next level. You just got to stay at it. One of the things that I shared, and I didn't, I don't talk about this often. The Democratic convention was this past weekend in Columbia, and I shared, I believed in South Carolina when South Carolina didn't believe in me. So I've been in banking for about 20 years, and I just this last year became vice president at a bank. So it took me 20 years to become vice president. So I will tell folks, families, whoever, don't give up on your dreams. Again, justice delayed is not justice denied. It sometimes takes a while, but if you just keep working at it and don't lose your credibility, don't lose your integrity, keep working at it and let your name speak for itself. And things happen when they're supposed to happen, and you don't always get sometimes a no is not a no, permanent no. Sometimes a no is not right now. And so I use that as my fuel. That's has carried me all over my career. And I just encourage families, anybody, teachers, everybody, to just keep working at it and don't give up because there's a greater day, a brighter day ahead. It may not feel like it, but it is.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. He was putting on his other hat for a second, but I appreciate it. I appreciate such words of wisdom because I too took that in. So I appreciate you being able to pour that in, not just to the viewers, but to myself. So thank you for that.
Absolutely.
Viewers, if you have any questions for him, please put it in the comments area. Again, these candidates will be in the background. And so if you have any additional questions for them, they will have a chance to continue to engage with you. Also, I ask that you continue to follow him on all social media platforms. Mr. Coates, if you will, I'm going to give you a chance to close out for any last minute words that you want to offer to those people that still undecided, haven't made it to the polls yet, or going to the polls but not sure which
Yep.
way they're going to go. I want to give you a chance to offer any words to them. But I do want to mention, too, if there's any upcoming events that you have that you would like for the viewers to know about, please share them as well.
Awesome. Okay. Oh, great. Well, let me just say thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate being able to engage with voters. It's kind of impossible to get all across the state, especially you work full time. I work 40 hours a week, and I'm really proud to be able to work, and I'm thankful to be able to work. But I would just encourage the folks all across South Carolina, if they're still undecided, I would just say find at least one issue. Find one issue that you find yourself in that you can relate to. Find that one issue and figure out if the person's on the ballot is representing that issue and taking that issue to the next level and being able to, you would trust that person to represent you in the state, whether that be the General Assembly, whether that be the governor's office, whether that be the treasurer's office. Can you trust that person? And I just, would appeal to them that I have built my career on putting in the work, doing the work. And that, it's not cute. It's not, as they say, sexy. You just do the work. And I just believe that if you confide in the folks who are committed to doing the work, your interests would be protected. And I actually want to give a message to folks who may be independent and may not lean necessarily on the Democratic side. We have to get back to some place where we're talking about the issues. Issues are very important. And sometimes, you may not listen to someone just because you think that because they represent a particular party or whatever, that they may not be able to relate. But we all are more alike than we are different, and that we care about most a lot of the same things. And so I encourage folks to, if they want to know more information about myself, they can check out my website, vincentforsc.com. I lay out a lot of information out there. And it's pretty straightforward. I try to make it, as self-explanatory as possible. And I'm also very responsive to folks if they want to email me. I try to be, respond. But again, participate in the process and don't let anybody take your voice away. Your vote is your voice. And if it didn't matter, we saw it very clearly the past 2 weeks. If it did not matter, they would not try to take it away. So I encourage folks to be encouraged. As you said, putting I have that minister hat on, so sometimes I get a little, get a little perplexed. But anyway, I just encourage folks to stay encouraged. And if you pick me, great. If you don't pick me, that's fine too. But just vote, use your vote, use your voice, and let's make South Carolina a greater and better place. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Coles. I do want to double back if I can. I had one question came in as you were talking, and so I do want to give you a chance while you're still on the screen to answer it. Do you believe? What do you believe is the biggest financial challenge facing South Carolina today?
Yeah, that's a great question. And again, I think it comes back to the thing of integrity and transparency and accountability. As I mentioned, the current incumbent, and I do want to say this too. I try not to attack the person, and it's the office. It's the office that the person holds. The current treasurer's office, there's a level of, I would say, a cloud, if you will, because of the mismanagement of funds that has been found by an independent report. That is a cloud that is hovering over the treasurer's office. So the sooner that we can get that cleared up, the more quicker we can move forward to making South Carolina greater and making a greater in return on the investments, ensuring that our retirees have their pension funds are funded, that our college savings plans are funded, that taxpayer dollars are protected, and that South Carolina is prepared for the next generation. We have to have accountability. We have to have trust, and we have to have someone that is willing to put in the work and have those tough conversations and be willing to work irrespective of personal beliefs, but in the best interest of South Carolina and the taxpayers.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Coles, again for the opportunity of having you here on the broadcast, but just being willing to pour out what your office, and I'm saying your office, but the office that you're seeking is
Absolutely.
doing and your vision for it. And I appreciate what you've shared here tonight. And again, you all, I ask that you continue to follow him on all platforms. I can assure you that he will engage with you. He will respond back to you. So I trust his word when he said that he definitely will do that. And so I just want to say thank you again, and I wish you well on your journey.
Thank you so much. And thank you for all the candidates that's waiting backstage. I'm great. I'm looking forward to hearing them as well. So thank you.
Yes, sir. You all, we are headed up here now, as he just mentioned about the treasurer's office. And he also talked about the comptroller general office as well. And so we're going to move on into that office and have a little conversation with both candidates that is running. And first up, we're going to talk to Mr. Coles, Mr. Cole, Bruce Coles, that is also running for the comptroller office. Good evening, sir. How are you?
Good evening, Miss Rouse. I'm
You
doing
doing
well,
okay?
thanks. I hope
Thank
you
you.
were. Yeah.
Thank you. You all, this office here in South Carolina pretty much serve as the chief accounting officer. They pretty much is responsible for all of the state accounting reports, authorized public funds. As Mr. Coles kind of mentioned, that relationship that they would pretty much grow and have with each other. So both of these offices are very important. But we want to thank Mr. Coles for joining us. And for those that are probably just hearing you for the first time, just kind of putting a face with a name or a name with a face, can you tell them pretty much who you are, what inspired you to run for this office, and what professional background that you have to prepare you for this role?
Sure, sure. My family and I moved here to Columbia about 20 years ago. I raised my two kids here. We moved here from Boston. I was invited, my wife and I were invited to work at Allen University to help them do a turnaround. I'll tell you a little bit more about my background. I have a turnaround experience, kind of a unique background that's given me a lot of broad education and experience. I with working with Allen, I worked with kids from all over the state, all over the country. After that, subsequent, I taught business, by the way, and after that, My wife and I moved up to Clemson. I got my PhD from Clemson, and in planning. She was teaching at Clemson as well. And then when we came back, I took a position at USC to teach business again at the Darla Moore School of Business, and South Carolina has been very good to me. I'm also a businessman. I mean, that's kind of the other part of my life. I've been washed by many waters. I have. My background has been very rich. I've been very blessed, and the reason why I'm running is threefold. One, South Carolina has given us so much, giving me a living. I'm a CPA. I also have a real estate business that I've been running for the past 15 years. I've been so blessed that I want to pay it forward. I mean, that's where my heart is. And that paying it forward means offering whatever I have, whatever I've learned, whatever I've believed in, offering it to the state of South Carolina during this troubled time. My background, just to give you a little bit about my professional background, I have a degree in economics, and with that degree, after I graduated, I worked for a think tank in Cambridge, Massachusetts, which was I learned a lot about how the federal government affects businesses and affects the labor force around the country. Um, Hold on, let me just turn this off. One of my lunch buddies is trying to reach me. He's we've got a think tank that we meet every Wednesday of people of former faculty and current faculty from USC. But worked for a think tank. Wanted to get more education, more background. I got a master's in accounting from Northeastern University. My undergraduate is from Harvard. I got a business accounting degree, worked in Wall Street, auditing large national banks and large international banks for a number of years. I decided that I didn't want to go up the accounting route as a typical accountant. Um, I, I, Strategy has been one of my strong suits. It's been a theme all throughout my life. I went to Stanford. I wanted to go out to the West Coast. I'd never been there before. Well, I heard so many wonderful things. The timing was perfect. It was at the dot-com era. I mean, people were just trying to understand what the internet was going to be. I worked there. I went to AT&T, which was a tremendous experience for me. Again, I'm just talking about the variety of things that I've done to show that the richness of the experience. They made me an offer I couldn't refuse. AT&T gave me a $50 million business to run. It was like a kid in a candy store. Having Bell Labs there that helped me to build out the value of my business. Then they sent me back to the San Francisco Bay Area, where I ran their business for all of their major customers, like
Sure.
Bank of America at that time, and the San Francisco 49ers. And then flash forward, one of my friends was on the board of the Boston Public Library, and he said, "Bruce, you should apply we're looking for a CFO. They've never had a CFO before." And I said, that's not my thing. I mean, I've been my mom was the president of the library commission in New Jersey. I had worked in libraries all my life, but I didn't see the match there. But they made me an offer I couldn't refuse. It was a powerful position. I worked with the billions of dollars in assets there. I helped the organization to become more resilient. The Mayor Menino gave me a commendation for the work that I did through disasters, through good times. And then I'll tip it off. When my wife and I got married, we were ready to go. Cleveland offered me a job of a lifetime, but the folks at John Hancock, which is like right across Copley Square from the library, said, no, we need you here. We're getting ready to go public. Based on what you do, what your skills are, we need you to help us. So I've always been a business development guy.
Okay.
I've always been a community guy. Um, uh, when I was in the Bay Area, I served on the board of St. Paul AME Church. I was a trustee. Through the Loma Prieta earthquake, it destroyed our sanctuary, and our team helped pull together the funding to build the new sanctuary. I was on the board of the cable system there. Coming here to South Carolina, I've served on the chair of the Sierra Club, the state chair. I'm currently serving on SE Economics on their board. I've served on the board of Conservation Voters. At the same time, one last point about my background. See, I've been washed by many waters. That's the point. Because of my interest in community development, I mean that has been a thread for me for quite some time. I helped with NASA. I helped with other organizations to build incubators when I was in California.
Okay.
But we started the Richard T. Greener Institute for Social Policy Research, which is a think tank to empower African Americans here in South Carolina. And the idea being, as African Americans prosper, so will the state. So I'll stop right there, and entertain some more questions.
Sure. Thank you for that. You mentioned or talked about obviously you being a certified CPA into real estate for about 15 years now, and you mentioned that number three part about paying it forward. And I tickled a little bit because you said the 49ers. I was waiting for you to say Dallas Cowboys, but
San Francisco. I mean, I can't help it. I mean, I was there on the field with Joe Montana.
Yes, sir.
I mean, I've lived a dream. I've lived a dream. Yeah.
Thank you. But overall, you've mentioned a wealth of experience that you have gained over the years, coming from Boston all the way here to South Carolina. And so we know South Carolina obviously have experienced financial reporting challenges in the recent years. Just recently, we've seen that across social media, the news outlets. What lessons should the state government learn from those experiences? And the second part of that is, what steps would you take to strengthen public confidence in state financial management?
That's a good question, Ms. Rouse. A set of books for any business is a promise. Okay, it's a promise that when you've got information, you know where it came from, you know where who it belongs to, that it's there, and when the results are not what they seem, trust begins to drift. So part of my goal would be to regain trust. Okay, and to do that is I'm looking at two primary projects. Well, first of all, we need to rationalize that the office. When I say rationalize the office, just basic controls. The Alex Partners revealed that there wasn't sufficient control over simple transactions. When I say simple transactions, folks were making sure that the books balanced as opposed to understanding what the transactions meant, right? And in many cases they weren't documented, but with regards to an accounting manual. One of the things I did, my wife, by the way, became president of Allen University. I mean, she's the real deal. She's the bad girl. I've written an accounting manual, for companies, and that's a basic thing that one has for a control that obviously wasn't sufficient. So one of my goals would be to make sure that whatever lack of internal controls existed, and I'm not clear that the ones that have been raised by not only Alex Partners but other auditors, that those controls are in place. Okay, that we're following the best practices. There is believe it or not, there's an association of comptrollers general from all the states, and at least that we follow those rules. Okay,
Yes, sir.
so at the end of the day, my goal is to help the government become more resilient. I see stormy days ahead. and for a number of reasons. We can go into that if you'd like at a later point. And we need to be able to ensure that the books are sound. And not only is this an accounting role, in my opinion, but it's also a chief financial officer role.
Mm.
Chief financial officers are coaches. And just like Brother Cole mentioned about the relationship between the treasurer and the Comptroller General's office, there should be a similar role with all of the agencies, because the interesting thing is that the general ledger is like a guidepost, right? Cash, since it's so volatile and such an important and sensitive part of the balance sheet, it requires somebody like a treasurer to be able to oversee all the complexities, the bond offerings, the investment banking that the investment banks would do, and other areas. But all of those line items in the books require people to be responsible in handling those. And if you don't know how to do it, the Comptroller General's office is the office that helps provide that kind of guidance. So we
Thank you.
really need to be a coach rather than just a compliance officer.
Okay. Thank you very much for that information. Before we move on, I do have one more question for you. And for the lack of time, in about 1 minute, if you would tell us, if elected, what would success look like for you at the end of your first term?
Well, for me, success would look like the not only our agency, the Comptroller General's office, but the Treasurer's office and Veterans Affairs, et cetera. They would be not so much process oriented. I mean, good processes are important, but outcome oriented and with measurable outcomes. Okay, so we're looking at having good analytics to make sure that we understand how you did this year versus last year. How are you becoming more efficient? With the taxpayers' money, are you becoming more sensitive to the taxpayers' needs? Okay,
Okay.
but the other piece, the flip side of that coin, and I call it public value creation, public value. What are you doing to make that taxpayer money more pay them more return? Okay,
Okay.
in terms of and return is not just profits. Return is also social benefits and the like. The other piece is I call civic wealth creation. We've got a business that we started already. It's not it's a nonprofit, and I've talked to the president of I've talked to some of the technical colleges and some of the officers at some of the agencies, whereby we use three things: one, engagement with the citizens; two, engagement with service providers like banks. I'll be talking more with Brother Coe and others. I've already reached out to some, and nonprofit organizations, and looking at the core here, though, in terms of using economic development, using entrepreneurship. Okay,
Yes, sir.
entrepreneurship as a tool for helping people understand how best to understand what we do with the government. Okay, and
Thank you.
yeah,
Thank you
my
very much, Mr. Coles. We understand that you have a lot, or should I say, a wealth of information. But for the sake of time, I want to allow you about 30 seconds just to close up of why the voters that haven't voted yet should choose you at the ballot box.
well, I'm a change agent. People call me when things go awry. People call me to help their organizations become more resilient or become more purposeful, more successful in terms of whatever strategy they might have. And because I'm uniquely qualified to do that, I'm asking folks to consider my candidacy as a way to get there from here. Because right now, the whole idea is for me, and I think for many voters, is to build trust again. Because with the mistakes that have been made with regards to the bookkeeping, it erodes trust because the numbers don't really reflect what the reality is. Why should we trust the numbers? And that gets us into a tailspin. So if folks want to know more about my candidacy, please go to my website, coal4sc.com. I explained a little bit more about our deliverables that we expect in the year number one. And if they have any questions, my contact information is there as well. Thank you.
Thank you again for joining us. You all, again, as he mentioned, you could definitely visit his website. Y'all, we're going to split for just a second. As I mentioned earlier, Ms. Winters was having technical difficulties and she was able to join us back. So I want to provide her an opportunity to speak as well. So Ms. Winters, how are you? You're on mute. If you could come unmuted for us. Just one second. We want to make sure we can hear you. Can you make sure your volume is up for us? I can see you but I can't hear you. Still can't hear you. You want to try maybe one more time to go out and come back in? Meanwhile, while she's doing that, you all, we want to go back to our other candidate that is on with us for the Comptroller General position, Miss Tiffany Boozer. And if I pronounce it wrong, please forgive me. How are you, madam?
Hold on one second.
There
Oh,
you go.
I'm
We can
great. How
hear
you
you.
doing?
How are you?
I'm doing good, thank you.
Good, good, good. Thank you for being able to join us and being patient as we were able to discuss or had a roundtable discussion with a number of candidates tonight. But thank you for your patience, for continuing to stay on. And we want to have an opportunity to hear from you as well. And so for viewers that have not heard from you before, just as other candidates, we want to give you a chance to tell them a little bit about yourself and what inspired you for this position.
A little bit about myself. My name is Tiffany Boozer. I am also a South Carolina native. I grew up in the small town of Clinton, South Carolina. And my family, we relocated to Columbia when I was in high school, Lower Richland graduate, also attended college in South Carolina as well. So that's a little bit about my upbringing. What caused me to run for this job? What made me enter the race? It was not on my bingo card. I will say that it was not on the card for me to enter this race. But as I work as the internal auditor at the Comptroller General's office, and so some conversations was going on about, up until the last couple of days, there was only one candidate in the race. And we were concerned, unfortunately or fortunately, our office, whatever is happening in the political world does affect our office. And it was some concern about having a future comptroller that is not a CPA, because prior to the last day when myself and Bruce entered, there was only one candidate in the race, and it looked like it was going to be a default win if somebody didn't at least contend. So kind of some conversations would happen amongst myself and a couple of other coworkers, and we were talking about the concept of audacity. If it's a lot of audacity going on, and one of my coworkers said to me, "Why don't you use your audacity and run for comptroller general?" So that's kind of how I ended up entering the race. Again, it was kind of somebody needed to step up in the moment. So I just call it uncommon courage. It's just, hey, just stepped out there against my personal fears and my own personal, oh my goodness, of being out in front of folks. But somebody had to do it, and here we are. So that's a
Thank
little
you.
bit about, who I am or where I came from and why I ended up entering this race.
Thank you. So I want to make sure. I love how you put that bingo card. It wasn't on your bingo card, but bingo. But you mentioned about being in the auditor's office, and could you make sure for the viewers that we know that the current position that you are running for, the comptroller, is an additional office other than the auditor's office? Is that
No. Let me make
okay?
the
Yeah, if
correction.
you would please. Yes.
You good. So I work in the Comptroller General's office
Okay.
currently. I am the internal auditor in the office. So a little bit of background really quickly. My role was created. So obviously we had some financial woes in South Carolina, and we went through a number of audits. We have number of recommendations. So a lot of things were happening behind the scenes. Although all you heard about was the saga, but you never heard the follow up to what happened after the saga. My role was created as a recommendation. It was one of the auditor's recommendations that, hey, we need an internal auditor in the Comptroller General's office. Like somebody has to be in here overseeing what we're doing so we can have another layer of confidence, basically, that, hey, we are doing what we're supposed to be doing, and somebody that's a little bit more independent, that's not on certain teams, that can go in and take a look at things. So I was hired for that role.
Thank you for clarifying that. And I asked that way because I also wanted to bring some context to what we're recently hearing about the and correct me with the number, but I believe it's like $1.8 million that has been maneuvering around. And so just to hear that, you're in that office, but yet you were pretty much brought into that office to kind of control some stuff. Like we need someone to go in there and pretty much, if I could use the term, clean it up a little bit. We need some traction going on. And so here it is, Ms. Boozer, that's in there just to help maintain, manage what is currently, and again, I say currently, to date, is happening in South Carolina, you all. And she, as she mentioned herself on the record, as being that recommendation. And so that plays a major part to kind of your why. Pretty much someone saw fit to see you from a distance to want to bring you in directly to kind of manage what is going on with this particular role. And so again,
Correct.
I just wanted to poke that bear because I wanted people to kind of understand kind of where you are and your why as to that office. And so for viewers or voters, I should say, that are kind of unfamiliar with the Comptroller General role, can you tell us why is this office important to everyday South Carolinians?
Yeah, so the role, we vote for this role, right? We vote for this role, we vote for the treasurer's office. I'm not a huge fan of it being voted for. I'm not a big fan of it being a partisan role. I think it should be nonpartisan, because here's what happens. The accounting, or the comptroller's office and the treasurer's office, these are the business roles of South Carolina. This is where the business happens. So when you're thinking about who to put in for these roles, you have to think professional. Like you have to think about it as in your personal business. If you were responsible for billions of dollars, who would you hire to manage that? And so many times with it being a partisan, we select Republican or Democrat. People just pick arbitrarily based on red and blue, and when it really boils down, that 1 + 1 is 2. It's not red or blue. And so when you have to kind of separate the business office from the issues in a sense, because these two offices don't play a role in how money is spent. We don't make any decisions. Our role basically comes down to reporting, and then for the treasurer's office, managing the South Carolina's money. So they don't play a role in quote unquote the politics, but it's kind of the way it's presented. If you don't know that, you don't know that. So think of it as you would your personal business. You may have the owner who makes decisions, on how things or which direction he wants the business to go in. But you have a separate accounting office that they're not necessarily, I mean, they may have data from the accounting office to help make those decisions, but in terms of the actual decisions themselves, they come from the leaders, or the other side, if you will. So I hope that kind of breaks it down a little bit
Yeah.
better.
Yeah, and I appreciate what you said in regards to kind of having that gray thin line in regards to this being a voted position versus a hired position, right? Because this is an individual that is basically managing the reporting of taxpayers' dollars, and we're pretty much voting on what we assume, like you said, Republican or Democrat, when it could just be feasible to let it be a higher position. I thank you for kind of pointing that out as well, which kind of leads me to the safeguards, right? So what safeguards should be in place to ensure public funds are properly tracked and reported?
I think that's a very complex. The thing about South Carolina is that there are a lot of different barriers, if you will. I will say there's a lot of different checks and balances in this particular case, as it relates to the comptroller's office. Really, the comptroller and the treasurer's office should work hand in hand. However, due to fractured relationships, due to the blame game, due to lack of accountability, due to a history of it's not you, it's me, it's not you. Due to the history, it has fractured the relationship between the two offices. So those safeguards become a little bit tougher to navigate. And even as the auditor coming in myself, brand spanking new. I mean, I didn't know the level of fracture in between the relationship. So I come in there bright eyed, bushy tail. Let's work together. Let's do this thing. And only to find out that whoa, this is extremely tough to navigate when you don't have parties, or when you, especially when you have that lack of accountability of
Mhm.
like I did nothing wrong. I kind of like what how Vincent put it. Fraud should not be the standard, or like whether or not it's fraud should not be the standard. It should be trust.
Thank
So we have to work together. I mean, it just boils down to, and we have to have two parties in two individuals as it relates to this particular office, because it's two sides of the same coin.
Mhm.
So we have to have cohesion between the two offices, and that's our biggest safeguard as it relates to this office.
Thank you. I would point out too that Mr. Coles definitely mentioned kind of bridging that gap and how you all, as far as collaboration, partnership, because basically what both of you all do in your respective roles kind of go hand in hand. So I thank you again for pointing that out. So obviously we're talking about technology here and innovation. How would you use both to improve the financial reporting and transparency?
Well, the good news is that some of and both of these areas, since I've been there, and they had already, the process had already started before I got there. The good news is that our current comptroller general has already began to spearhead these particular things. For example, when I came in already, they had purchased a new system for the preparation for the financial statements. So when I came in, they were already migrating over to a new system to kind of take out the manual pieces. The more manual something is, the more risk that it creates. So when I, transition into a new system, we still have a few more areas that we're still needing to transition, but about 90% has been transitioned to a new system so that we can use, more modern technology to help prepare the financials rather than, and it's just not this state agency. I've worked for a couple of other agencies. State agencies tend to be very paper heavy, very manual heavy. And so just to see that transition is a giant help. One of the things that was also implemented under the current general is the transparency portal. We had not had one prior to his particular tenure. And what the transparency portal is, we provide data so that you can go out and see. And the data is updated monthly. I would like to see it updated more often so that it'll be a little bit more. I mean, we are in 2026, maybe to potentially see if we can get that real time, like, or at least weekly, to try to get that data out to the South Carolina citizens as quickly as possible. But on the portal, you can see by agency, um, how what each agency is spending by category, and then you can also roll that up to the state level to see how much we've spent at state level by category. Now, I would even say even to uh, Cole's point, me personally, I would like to see analytics to go with that, to where you can see year over year. Now, that portal hasn't been out there a year, so we don't have the data in there yet. But I would like to see analytics that are simple for any reader or any person that have any level of understanding can see year over year of like, where are we spending money? How are we spending money? How are we trending? So those are some of the things that I would like to see, and even from an audit perspective, I've spent my career as an auditor, pretty much my whole entire career as an auditor. I would like to see more data as it relates to the higher risk
Mm,
areas, whereas, for example, capital projects. Anything related to capital projects, those can be risky because we set money aside and it should cost this much. And then
mhm.
when you get into cost overruns, I think citizens should be able to see, oh, Scout Motors is going over. That's not what we planned.
Yeah,
So I think those type of things should be a little bit more readily available for citizens so they can ring the alarm and say, listen, we got to bring more benefit than spending. I mean,
right.
so I think those are the type of things that need to have a little bit more data so that folks, and I just want to make it simple. I
Thank
want to
you.
make it simple because the truth of the matter is the financials of the state of South Carolina, the accounting office, the treasurer's office, they are very complex, very complex. And so my thing would be to make complex matters, make them simple that any person can go in and understand what it is. I'm really big on simplicity because the more people know, they can make better decisions. But if as long as you keep it complex, they're not going to be able to identify what's happening.
Absolutely. Again, you are very knowledgeable. You are very much ready to, like you say, go in and get things rolling. And so we appreciate you for just being that recommendation to this particular office to come in to help bring some balance to it. I do want to give you at least 30 seconds to a minute for those voters that has not have an opportunity to make it to the ballot box yet, why they should click your name.
So a little bit of background that I didn't get into, and why I think it's important for the state that we're in right now. I've spent my entire career as an auditor. I mean, I'm not a jack of all trades. I'm a master of one. That's what I've been doing. And so getting to the bottom of things, like I said, the state's financial, our financial health and where we are financial is a very complex thing. And so in my career, what I do is deep dive. I need to understand every facet of this particular account. I need to understand everything. How are we putting this together? How is this falling on the financials? And so, particularly my skill set as an auditor, because as an auditor, you test transactions before it goes on the financial. So you've tested it all the way out from cradle to grave and understand where all of those numbers are coming from, how they all tie together, and you assess internal controls. So my thing is right now, as we reset, we had a ton of recommendations. We have cleared, our office had about 30 recommendations. We have cleared all but about three of those. Not that we haven't done them, it's just they haven't been reviewed to be, marked as complete. But we have done a ton of work, a ton of work. And so getting to the bottom of the numbers is what's important. Making sure that our foundation going forward is solid, as strong, and that our internal controls, how we lay this foundation in this new system, that is the most important piece to sustain South Carolina. And I'm real big on succession, and like Cole mentioned before, written processes and things like that. If a person who's never worked here can't come in and duplicate what you have done, it's not done well. And so I'm really big on putting things in place to make sure that this will never fall off because somebody can pick up exactly where I left off. I left everything that you need to make sure that this can continue forward. So cleaning up the foundations, that's what I do as an auditor. That's what I've done my entire career. And I think this particular skill set so that we can trust particularly the financials, that's where I want to put my focus at. It's just we have to rebuild and we have to build back better. And what person better to rebuild than an auditor who does all the testing, who does the inspections on these type of things in the first place. So I know what I'm looking for.
Thank you again for joining us. We appreciate your time. We appreciate the information that you shared. And again, you all, you can continue to follow her on all social media platforms. If you have any additional questions for her, please drop them in the comment areas. While you may not see the candidates on the main screen, they are in the background so they can continue to engage with you. So thank you again for what you've shared with us tonight, and we wish you well on your continued journey.
Thank you.
You all, we're going to move to the superintendent of education. Um, okay, we have Miss Winters back. Can you hear us, Miss Winters?
Hooray. I can. Can you hear me?
Yes. Okay. So we're going to give her a chance to, before we move to the super education, we're going to give her a chance earlier. Her technology was going in and out, and so we do want to give her an opportunity to share her platform with you as well. And so, Miss Winters, if you would just kind of tell us a little bit about yourself and what inspired you to run for this office.
Sure. Well, as you can hear, I'm not from actually South Carolina. I have that British accent. So originally from the UK, but I now live in South Carolina and have done for the last 14 years. So this is definitely home, very much home. Family is here, dogs are here, life is here. And I got inspired to run because February last year, the Trump administration put out an executive order that basically said they wanted to review all of naturalized citizens' paperwork to see if we could still stay in the country. And that got me scared, and then it got me angry. So I decided it was time to run, and the thing that I was qualified to run for was Secretary of State.
Okay. So while you mentioned about being qualified, what challenges do you believe deserve the direct attention for this particular office?
Okay, well, I just think it's an office that hasn't done as much as it could have done for the last 24 years. So I've got big plans for the office. I want to really make it the engine for small business and nonprofit growth in South Carolina, because it's small businesses that really are the backbone of this state. And they're not invested in enough, they're not cared for enough. And I think that's something, because the Secretary of State's role is all about business filings, registrations, licensing, and that sort of thing. It really is well positioned to be able to become that engine, start to create that generational wealth for people in South Carolina.
Thank you for that. So in this particular role, what about or should technology play in improving the services for residents and businesses when it comes to the Secretary of State office?
Well, I think it's all to do with accessibility. So for me, there is a portal. You can go online and register your LLC and do some of your business filings, but it's a pretty old portal. It's not very user-friendly. People really struggle with it. Forms are not written in user-friendly language, so a lot of people have to use a CPA or a lawyer to be able to get their LLC, and that's not right. Also want to make it that we put some offices in rural areas, in, say, libraries, so that people can actually get to them without having to have internet connection or having to have a car to come to Columbia. So I think it's about making it more accessible for everybody, easier to use, transparent. If you want business records, you should be able to search them much more easily online. You should want to be able to know a little bit more about the companies that we're doing business with. That information should be much more readily available online for everyone to use.
Thank you for that. And I definitely agree in regards to making that site itself a little bit more user friendly. So we definitely look forward to even just that enhancement. But if elected for this position, what is one promise you can make to South Carolina voters that they can hold you accountable for?
I think the promise that I will give them is that I will do absolutely everything in my power to make sure that anybody in the state, if they have that idea, whoever they are, wherever they are, that they will be able to easily create a nonprofit or a small business very cheaply and with the least fuss possible.
Yes. So is there any last words for those undecided voters, for those voters that have not made it to the ballot box yet, that you would like to share with them before you leave the platform?
Well, thank you. Yes. Please vote for me in this primary and then the general election. I have big plans for this office, and I just want to make South Carolina the best that it can be. I'm fed up seeing it in the bottom 5 of good things and the top 5 of the bad things that go on in this country. I love this state, and I just want everybody to get opportunity and be able to live the American dream the way that I was able to.
Thank you, Ms. Winters. Again, we appreciate your patience and continuing to come back on. I know technology was going in and out for you in the beginning, but I appreciate you being willing to still come on and share a little bit more to our viewers, but yet to the voters here in South Carolina. You can continue to search her on her website and also on social media platforms. As she mentioned, she has big plans for South Carolina. So she's urging you to continue to get to know her if you have not voted yet. And also, if you're still undecided, you have a chance to hear from her tonight, but you also have an opportunity to view her platforms just to learn a little more. And so we thank you again, Ms. Winters, and we also wish you well on your continued journey for Secretary
Thank
of
you.
State.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. You all, now we're finally going to move on to education, you all. And we have here tonight Miss Lisa Ellis. How are you?
I'm fine, Dr. Rouse. How are you doing?
I am doing well, and thank you so much for your patience hanging in here as you were sitting in the background. Thank you, thank you. But here's the trick to that. As I was just thinking of finishing up Miss Winters, it also shows proof to education, right? You're going to be working with young kids, and patience is virtue. And again tonight, it definitely showed that in you being a candidate for the superintendent of education. So thank you again for being willing to be here. You all, we know education is the front line to our young people here in South Carolina, wanting more, needing more, and it's time to do more. This particular role serves as the chief advocate for public education. And so we want to hear from Miss Lisa Ellis here tonight in regards to her plans. And so if you would just tell us a little bit about yourself in your own way, and again, why education matters to you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I just finished up my 25th year of teaching. I was born and raised in Columbia, South Carolina, but have spent my adult career as a teacher in Richland 2 has been most of my career. I've also spent some time in Fairfield County School District and Richland School District 1. I currently am the Director of Student Activities at Blythewood High School. It is a job that I love and I'm so passionate about. In essence, I work with students to create community-wide events and school events to build school culture and a positive school climate. I love my school. I love my admin team. I love everything that we do. And I realize I'm very fortunate in that. And really, my hope is for every student and every teacher in South Carolina to have those same positive experiences. In 2018, I got really frustrated with public education and the way that teachers were being treated and basically ignored. We're boots on the ground every day. We see the impact of policies, and yet our voices have not been at the table. So I created SC for Ed, which was a closed Facebook group to really build a community of teachers. This very quickly turned into an advocacy movement because what we saw as teachers was, regardless of where we were in the state, we were all dealing with the same problems. And so we started using our voices to work for change in South Carolina. That led me to running for Superintendent of Education in 2022 for the state. I didn't win that election, and so I went back to what I think I do best, which is teaching. And continued to focus on my students and my community, but dealt with the negative fallout of our current superintendent, and just saw how detrimental the policies were for our students and our teachers, and decided that I needed to put my hat in the ring one more time, and really try and hope for a different outcome this time.
Thank you for that. So when we talk about, you mentioned that you ran in 2022, correct?
Correct.
And just under the current administration, and just kind of how things navigated with you running and still being in education. What do you believe is the biggest challenge facing in public education today in South Carolina?
Well, sadly, to me, it's the same problem that we had in 2018 is the teacher shortage. When you look at research about effective school outcomes, a high quality teacher in classroom is the number one predictor of whether a student is going to be successful. And we have been dealing with a teacher shortage, for years. And I've lost some of my greatest colleagues because of the salary and the working conditions. You can talk about all these different programs to implement and this will help students and this will help students. But if you don't have that high quality teacher to lead those students through, then no program is going to work to fix that. When we think about sort of the first things that I would do in the role is to really work on that teacher shortage. There's two reasons why teachers leave. It's the salary and the working conditions. With the salary, I would have to work with, or I would have the pleasure of working with the state legislature to build that salary schedule. But the working conditions really come out of the Department of Ed and out of local school districts. So that's where we could really make some quick change and hopefully get the teachers, back into the classrooms. We talk about a teacher shortage, but it's not really a shortage. We have plenty of high quality certified teachers. They're just not willing to do the job under the current conditions. And I would really work to change those conditions.
Thank you for that. And so when we talk about teacher shortages, I want to go to what role should parents and communities play in improving student outcomes?
Well, I think we all have to look at it as a partnership, right? I remember the old "it takes a village to raise a child," and I think we've sort of, gotten away from that, and we put all of these expectations onto schools without understanding that, it takes all of us to make sure that these students are successful. I think when I talk about education and who's responsible, I talk about it as in a triangle, and that you've got the student at one point of the triangle, you've got the parents or guardians at the other, and then you've got the school at the third. And depending on where that student is in their life, they're either more or less responsible depending on their age, right? So if they're elementary school or early childhood, it really falls on the parent and the student to help that child. But as the child matures and gets older and starts to take on more and more responsibility, that student needs to be the responsible one, because ultimately in K through 12, we're preparing them to be, adults in a civilized society, right? Absolutely. And so, throughout that K through 12 progression, you're going to have to lean on those points of the triangle a little bit differently. But at the end of the day, we all have a responsibility in teaching and molding our students for their future.
Thank you for that. Ms. Ellis, you mentioned you've ran before. You've been in education, I believe I wrote down, for about 25 years now, and you established, was it SC for Ed? Did I say that right?
That's correct.
Is that Facebook?
It's Facebook. It's now a 501c4, so it moved into sort of a nonprofit to really work for advocating for teachers. Yeah.
Okay. And so with all of that, you've been able to kind of put yourself back out there since 2022. For viewers that are still undecided, for viewers that not sure whether they are going to even vote, because some people, as you mentioned early on, may just have one of those kind of frustrated moments in regards to education itself. In your own closeout way, what would you tell the viewers that are still trying to decide on who their candidate is for education? In your own way, what would you tell them to click your name at the ballot box?
Well, I think first and foremost, we've got to vote, right? I feel like South Carolina is living the definition of insanity, where we keep doing the same thing but expect different outcomes. Mm-hmm. So, as a citizen of South Carolina, we've heard it tonight, our vote is our voice. If we want a better education system, if we want a better South Carolina, we've got to take our own action and make that happen. And the way that you do that is by voting, but voting for the candidate who is most qualified, who knows the policy and knows how to make it better. I'm one of those people that is not going to be a Band-Aid person, because we've Band-Aided public education in South Carolina for my entire career. Absolutely. I would go to, where the problems are started, the origin of the problem, and fix it there. And I know how to do that. I just need your vote to do it. And I really think that we can make differences quickly that will improve the outcomes of our students, our teachers, and our entire public education system.
Thank you for that. You can continue to research Ms. Ellis on her website, also on social media. And as she mentioned, she has a group on Facebook, so you can join it as well and just continue to learn a little bit more about her. She's been in education, as she mentioned, for 25 years, and she ran before. Sometimes being frustrated with the current administration, you see the fight, the struggle inside, on one side of the fence and also on the other side of the fence. But she got back into classrooms, but also on now a different level to to still support our students. So we say thank you for the work that you've done in education and for the work that you look to continue to do. So we also wish you well on your journey as well. And thank you again for joining the platform. You
Thank
all, if
you.
you have any continued questions, we ask that you please share them in the comments. Again, these candidates are in the background, and so they will have an opportunity to engage with you. Other candidate for education is Miss Sylvia Wright, who joined us back in April. And you all can go back and rewatch that episode. And while she was not able to join us again tonight, her team did submit a video that we would like to share with you as well.
Who's fighting for our school? Sylvia Wright. Who's putting kids first? Sylvia Wright. Born in Charleston, she knows the way. 20 years of teaching, she's here to stay. Quality schools in every zip code too. Sylvia Wright is fighting for you. Vote for her June the 9th. Sylvia Wright. Sylvia Wright.
Vote June 9th for Democrat Sylvia Wright, South Carolina's best choice for State Superintendent of Education. Paid for by Friends of Sylvia Wright.
I want to say thank you to the viewers, for I know tonight was a little longer than we normally do our different episodes. But what I found here in South Carolina, just engaging with a number of people across the state, is many times we don't know who our state candidates are. We don't hear from them, we don't see them. So tonight you all had an opportunity to hear directly from them. And so I want to thank each candidate that took time to join the table tonight to share their plans, their views, and what they are hopeful for South Carolina. So to the candidates across the board, I do say thank you. To our viewers, I ask that you continue to tune in, stay informed, stay engaged in this process. It is very important that we remember that our voice matters, our vote matters, and we ask that you continue to research your candidates, make informed decisions, and most importantly, we just need you to get out and vote. And so we close tonight by again asking that you continue to follow this platform. If you would like to take a seat at the table, we ask that you just inbox us and let us know. We'll be glad to have each and every one of you. We thank you for the candidates that was not able to join us but was willing to submit a video as well. And we also want to just thank Mr. Freeman, who was on earlier, but his due to technical difficulties, he was not able to stay on. But we just want to thank him for his efforts, and to all of you all for your patience. And again, ask that you continue to follow Broadcasting Results with Rouse, encouraging that you again stay informed, stay engaged, and continue to create conversations that matters. You all, until next time, you all have a good night.